so just like the other lessons, you just need to install the first 2 lines is actually to install the code. Install stop words. Actually, stop words and emojis packages that allows us to understand text, you know. Emojis is actually to understand the emojis labeling. And then the second one is all the basic import stuff. All right. And then there are 3 functions here which you can reuse later. All right. So the first line, if you will look at the function called starts with date and time. So it is basically doing what it says. Okay. That means it's looking for the string that starts with date and time. That means it's got, so you can see the first character which is after the single quote, which is the hat sign. We call it the hat because it looks like a hat that you wear. So the hat symbol indicates that the line must start with a /d, and /d refers to digit. Okay, and then inside that digit there must be at least 1 or 2 digits. That means there is minimum length of 1 and a maximum length of 2. So there can be a 0, 3, or you can even be a 3, you know, just to be careful. And then after that, it must be separated with a slash. So so that whole line is actually trying to decipher the text from your WhatsApp chat. So if you go line by, you go by character, each character actually refers to something. So in a date string, you have the slash, correct, to separate the day, month, and year. So if you see closely, you have the slashes there, and then inside it you are specifying what sort of digit that is appearing. So is it a single digit or a double digit? And you can see the last digit goes from 1 to 4. That means it goes till 2021, or, you know, having a 4-digit number. And then there is a comma, and then we start again. There's a space, /d. This is now going to be hour, and then minute. And then we're going to have /s, means there can be a space. All right. And then you'll see there's something very interesting here where you have the square bracket. Now, a square bracket means it can be anything between capital A or small a, capital P or small p, and then the next character can be a capital M or a small m. So now, if you looked at your text file, all right, that you've exported from your what is that, your chat group, right? You will see that this format is the starting line for every message. Okay, that is the starting line of every message. So now we have to decipher so we have deciphered the time and date and time of the message. So that's the first part, which is the starts with date and time. So you can see how it checks whether this pattern is true, and then if it's true, then it takes that as the start line. So it returns true or false. Okay, so when you come back to the code, you can see that it's going to return start or true or false. Okay, so that is a check to ensure that, and this is what we call as regular expression. All right, so Sudan, just open another tab and just type REGEX and see what happens, and see whether you have any references to regex. Just click on, yeah, I think that'll work. I can't see, but I think that'll work. So they actually give a lot of document to capture a string, a word, a symbol. All of these things can be actually captured from using regular expression. So regular expression is one of the techniques of understanding text or doing pattern matching. So you can see that it's quite powerful. Anything you think of can be done, right? As long as there is a pattern, it will pick it up. So this lesson here today is actually to understand patterns, all right, in text, and we use regular expression to deploy this. Okay, can you come back to the code, please? All right, so can you scroll down a little bit? Can you go to the method? So what is the next method? So now we're going to find the author. So after we've selected the date, we're going to find the author. Okay, so you can see the author is actually the author of this code is actually a Spanish guy. All right, so he's made this software available. So now you see what is happening here is that there are 4 different types of patterns. 4 different types of patterns. The first pattern is W/W means word. So if there is a word and the plus sign means any number of words, as long as it's got a colon. You can see that there is a colon after the brackets. So just like how square brackets meant something, curly braces mean something, the regular bracket also means something. That means the bracket in a pattern match says that this is what I want to match. That means you tell me whether there was a match and I want to remember this value. See, the previous line, it was just matching to see whether it conformed to that format. That's all. But in the second one, we want to capture it and store it as a value. So that's when we use the normal brackets. Okay, so we have square brackets inside the bracket with a /W. The /W refers to any word. Okay, and then the plus that is coming after the square bracket, that means I can have any number of words. I must have one word and many of words. That is as long as it's before the colon. Can you just shift to the text again? So you can see, okay, let's take the, oh my God, the text is so small. So you can see that whenever there's a name, what precedes the name? Let's say Kana Sabaratnam, line number, after Emily, okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you see, after Kana Sabaratnam, there is a colon. Can you see that? Yeah. So the colon is a giveaway that everything precedes that is the name of the author. So how do we detect this? Is by using this sort of a method called find author. So this is going to look for the author. So as long as you can see that in the next line pattern, I think it's awesome, Madan, when you can highlight like this when I'm speaking. So patterns, you can see pattern is an array because it's got square brackets. And then the first line is capturing one word. The second line is capturing a word with a space and then a word. The third one is a word, space, word, space, word. And then the last one, word with a emoji. So we are covering all possibilities within the pattern. So you can see pattern can contain a string, I mean one pattern, or it can contain multiple patterns. So when we do this, you can see that now the next line, you have pattern, okay, and then you can see the hat sign. Go down to patterns, find author, that pattern. Yes. So that pattern, you can see that it's got a hat and then there is a pipe. Pipe in regular expression means OR. That means it's an OR function. That means whichever is true, I will include that pattern as my result. So that's how we create multiple pattern matching for a single string. All right. So it can actually cycle through all four for each line to check whether the pattern exists. And if the pattern exists, it is saved in result. All right. So if result is not empty, it will return true. And if result is empty, it return false. That means it found the author or it didn't find the author. All right. This is a very simple example of, I mean, it's not simple, it is quite complex, but it is very relevant because you can actually see what the messages, how the messages are stored and how pattern matching is actually working. Then let's go to get data point. Right. So this does exactly what we want, to capture the number of lines that we want. And you can see this now starts putting everything together. It starts putting the find author together. It starts putting, first it checks, it finds the author, and then it gets the date time split, it gets the date time, then it gets the message. So all of this is kind of working together in here. So let's look at, okay, so here we have another method called get data point, and then we pass the line. All right, the line means each row of the text file. And then the next line is where you actually have to put in your file. Can you go down some more? Yeah, that's where you actually put in the path of your file. And then when you execute this, that path will be saved as the value for conversation path. Then you can go on to the next one and execute this line where it says pass data. So before you execute, let me just explain. All right. So what it's doing is after opening the file conversation path, it's going to give it a pointer. That means I don't have to call the file anymore. I just call FP. That's why it says conversation path encoding as FP. FP is a file pointer. We can call it anything we want. Remember, we call pandas PD, we call numpy npy. You know, those are easy ways of referring to it. Instead of writing the whole equation, we just give it a short name. So the while loop is set to true, right? So yeah, it begins to read the line again and sets it to the line variable. That means it's going to read one line at a time. Then the next one, it's going to check whether there is a line. If there is no line, then it will break out of the loop. Okay, assuming there is a line, it will continue to the next line. Line equal to line strip. So what does strip do? It removes the ends of a line where you have the return character or a new line is stripped out. So you only have the text now. Okay, then it goes on to do starts with date time. So it checks whether that line has got a date time. Okay, so if the line has got a date time, then it knows it's a start of a new conversation. So it starts to create a buffer and it starts to populate that buffer with a value. So it appends it to the past data element and it picks up the date time and the author and it puts it into an array. So can you just scroll to the, okay, so you can see that date time author and then it puts in the message. Okay, so what is date time? Date time right now is none. Okay, because you can see that before the while loop we had set it to none and author none, so it will be none for now. But then you can see after the message buffer clear, okay, it clears out the message buffer because a new line, a new message has to be entered. So here we are using the data point method. The data point is going to return the date, time, author, and message. If you go back up to date time, get data point, you can see that the return value at the bottom, the last line in that method, is returning the date, time, author, and message. So that is then passed into the variable called date, time, author, and message at the bottom here. So that's how it basically works. So it's very, very clear, very, very simple in terms of how get data point works. So now there's an actual message. So that's why we had to clear the message buffer and then append this as a new message buffer. All right. So what happens is we have created a new message buffer. So we only clear it. We only clear the message buffer when there is a new line detected. All right. Because you notice, right, in the WhatsApp, there were some lines that were starting without the date time, but it's actually part of the previous conversation. Yes, thanks, Madan. So you can see certain messages actually have multiple lines. Example that what Sudan has highlighted. The first message has got date time, but the second line doesn't have a date time. So we are trying to populate all those within that date time to be in the same message buffer. All right, then we will get our past data, which is an array, because we are going to populate all this data into past data. Okay, and so basically you see when the message buffer is greater than 0 in the if length message buffer line, it's actually whatever message buffer was previously captured is then added on to that particular past data at that particular time, and then it's cleared. All right, then it starts the new process. So it's a very intelligent way of doing. That means when it detects the next line is when it creates the previous data. So it ensures that all the previous lines have been read, and then it creates the buffer, the past data set. And then we call our good friend pandas to generate the past data based on date, time, author, and message column. So we have now everything in a very clean and structured format. We have date, time, date, message, all that in a proper column. All right. So this is what we want to do when we have to deal with text messages that they have their own standard formatting. All right. So so once you have it in this format, you can do a lot of things like drop columns, group by columns, create remove all the null values, and I also did some pivoting. Okay, you can see I did a pivot. That means I create, because you see I wanted to know by date, right, who messaged what, right? So that was pivoting the table, because the names of people were actually rows, but then I pivoted it and made it into columns. So that's what a pivot does. A pivot takes a particular column, the author column, and makes that into the values of the author becomes the name of the header of the column. You can see that the author column has become the name of the people in the company. All right. So this is a very important trick that you need to learn when you're massaging data, how to pivot a table.
Very but the school council can do absolutely diddly squat about all the things that has been happening.
Sorry, somebody is very unhappy. Okay, so basically, pivot, a pivot is something that we would use if we want to move a very heavy object, like you put a stone and a stick and then you use the pivot to topple it. So that would be a pivot. So what we have done here is pivoted the table from rows to columns. So we can see by date how many people have actually, how many messages they have sent by date. So this can give us an idea of who are the heavy texters, who are the ones who are very quiet, who are on the average, and what is the average response by people, and so on and so forth.